This
Okay.
conference will now be recorded.
All
Hold
right,
on a
looks like
second.
we got most people. You ready, Sherry?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So thanks everyone for joining tonight. Today is Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, the regular monthly meeting of the Clinton Inland Wetlands Commission. The time is 7:03. Sherry, could you call roll for tonight?
Sure, just a moment. 7:03. Robert LaFrance emailed he is having technical difficulties with his internet, so he's not going to be here. Okay. Edward Alvarino,
Here.
Bertrand Smith. No, Bert.
No.
Michael Florio,
Here.
Tanya Abatello,
Here.
Ryan Tardisel,
Here.
Scott Harley,
Here.
Kimberly Lombard,
Present.
Lawrence Edwards.
Here.
Okay. And you
I-
can see Kimberly and Lawrence.
Yep. So I'll seek Kimberly for Bert, Lawrence for Rob. So both of you guys can vote tonight. All right, so first item agenda, meeting minutes from our December 6th, 2022 regular meeting. If there's no changes recommended to our minutes, I'll take a motion to approve those.
So moved.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Brian, Tanya second. Any discussion on December's meeting minutes? Okay, all those voting in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Okay, motion carries. Item agenda number 2, visitors not on the agenda. Is there any visitors tonight that would like to be recognized at this time? Okay, no, here are none. We'll move on to item agenda number 3, new applications received after the filing of this agenda. I did not see any, Sherry, right?
None.
Okay. Breezing right through. Item agenda number 4. So this is IWC 21-014V. This is the violation at 15 Baxter Road for placing a wood chips in or within 100 feet of the wetlands. A violation was issued. Application for a permit was pulled and withdrawn, and this is still pending deep action. I guess, Kathy, is there any update on
Yes,
Baxter Road?
there are updates. So I had contacted Stan Gormley and Eugene McGillis from DEEP. I haven't heard back from them anything specific yet, but I did talk to Chuck Mandel, who's the professional engineer and agent for the property owner, and he said they're going to remove the wood chips. So I told him that he would need to apply for a permit to do that. He said the only issue is that the ground is frozen, and I said that's fine, but I still want you to apply for the permit because it's a violation, sign of good faith. And I said also I want to condition the permit so that the work has to be done within a certain period of time. And so he said that he was not going to submit it tonight because he didn't have a plan ready to submit, but he did submit an email with his intention to apply for the wetlands permit at the next meeting. I'll have everything submitted before the next meeting in February, and then we can go over, you know, how they're planning to do it and what kind of equipment they'll use and what kind of a timetable they'll need.
Okay. Any comments, discussion from the commission regarding this open violation?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, we can move right along. Item agenda number 5, IWC 22-10. This was withdrawn at our last meeting. Looks like waiting on corrected withdrawal request due to clerical error. I guess why is this still on our agenda?
Sherry had said
It's more a placeholder. he sent us a withdrawal for the previous application that he withdrew. And today, Mr. Mandel sent a letter saying that Mr. Santiago withdrew the original application, which was true, he did, but Mandel submitted one and withdrew that one. And then he submitted the second one, which is 2210, which he still hasn't given us the proper withdrawal. So it's really a placeholder.
Okay. Could you, whenever Mr. Mandel submits his new application for 2023, I'm sure it'll get a new number. Could you have him formally withdraw this application just so that we don't need to take it up? You could do that via email,
We'll
right?
push him on
Yeah,
that.
it's been requested. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to him today.
Clean. Okay, perfect. Just to clean it up.
Yep.
Okay. Moving along, item agenda number 6, WEO report. So that was
Okay.
distributed by Kathy just prior to our meeting. So everyone should have that in their email inbox.
So for the bridge, I did go out there for the semi-final inspection, and there were a couple spots where they needed to fix some silt fence because it was laying down flat, and they were putting in some matting and other things. But I went back out there. I was actually, Abby Pearsall came with me. I was concerned about, it was a part that I couldn't see because they had a lot of construction equipment out there and it was covered. But there's like a swale, and it's asphalt, and it goes from the road right into the water, and there's no filtration. So they did put in some rocks that they called riprap, and I spoke to the team about it, and they said that it's always been that way. Todd Hayjack concurred with that. So I'm actually meeting with our town engineer this Thursday, and I've asked Abby to come with me. I want to see if there's any way to put in some type of filtration, because I don't like that the water, it's a low point. If you turn from Valley to Carter Hill, it's at the bottom of the hill in multiple places. And I just don't like the idea of the water running completely unfiltrated, the sediment and non-point source pollution. But Todd's concern is that it's flood prone. So we have to make sure it doesn't cause more buildup. So that's why I want our town engineer to come out there with me and see if he has any ideas. So I'll report back to you as soon as I have more information on that. So Baxter Road we discussed. Let's see what else we've got here. Blaine, that's what I just to recap on that one. I had a complaint from a neighbor about somebody who lives right at the beginning of Blaine, who was doing some work in the wetlands without a permit, and also was allegedly, trying to hurt the beavers with rocks and a spear and other things. So I went out and I talked with him, and I told him he could not use any heavy equipment in the wetlands. He had and he had put a gate up and a fence to try to prevent the beavers from damming it. So I had sent him a letter of violation, and I also told him no activity verbally and in the letter. Then I went back out there a second time, and I asked Abby Pearsall to come with me because honestly, I was the property owner was a little hostile, so I didn't want to go by myself. And he had said that he was having a lot of flooding issues, and he felt that the beavers were the problem. I talked with him about not using any heavy equipment, that he would need to get permits for that. And also I talked to them about the water leveling device, the beaver deceivers. So I did have a long conversation with Darcy Winther from Connecticut Deep about what to do. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send, come up with a letter and put up my photos and things like that. I'm going to go over it with Abby and just, have the town attorney take a look at it. And then I'll send it to him requesting that he hire a professional to see if any restoration or remediation of the water course is necessary, because I've heard different things about what it looked like. I've heard it was a pond. Now I've heard it's dried up, and I don't know what normal looks like there, and if there's anything that's adversely impacted the habitat or the water course itself. So that's very much of an active situation, and as soon as I have more information, I'll definitely report that back. So I have one piece of happy news to share. So Mike Florio contacted me. As you know, he had some beaver issues a few years back on Lindera Lane, and he was interested in finding out more about the beaver deceiver. And ironically, I had gone to a CACUIC meeting, which is the Connecticut Association of Inland Wetlands Conservation Commissions. And I happened to meet somebody at my table who knows somebody who puts in these systems. So I contacted him, and he gave me the name of Diane Honer from Chester, and her company is called Beaver and Wildlife Solutions. So she met Mike and I out on the property, and we went farther down Lindera Lane to a couple of other properties. And she said she's installed many of these systems. They work for 8 to 10 years or until the pipe rusts. She said that, you know, trapping is a short-term solution, but these systems are a longer-term solution. And there is grant money available for them. And so I've asked her if she'd be willing to come to our meeting next month. So she's going to give us a presentation on these systems and answer questions. And then I'm going to be going, I've invited Abby to come with me. We're going to be meeting Diane in Chester to see one that she's installed. So I thought I would take some photos and share that with all of you as well, just to see what it looks like, how it works. And I just thought it'd be great for us all to get a little more education on that. So that'll be February 7th. And other than that, that's pretty much the end of my report.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Any questions from the commission? Just real quick, Kathy, regarding Blaine Avenue, the work in the water course, do you know what work was performed? Like, were they using equipment?
Yes, they had a backhoe, and they were taking things. They said they were trying to clear the culvert, but what I saw when I went out the second time, because the neighbor who had complained told me they still were doing the work, even though I'd asked them not to. And so what I saw was a metal gate that they had put in with, I'm assuming, the backhoe, unless they did it by hand. And then they also put in some metal fencing. I told them those all had to be removed and that they could not be, you know, doing anything with the water course. They said all they were doing was taking, you know, stuff out that the beavers had deposited in there to clear the culvert so the road wouldn't flood. And that was their concern, was the flooding of the road, because it leads back into a trailer park. But I really impressed upon them that they could not use heavy equipment and they couldn't do any more work. But as I said, I wanted to know what the best course was in terms of the next steps. And I, you know, again, talking with Darcy as well, she said, you know, aerials may help, but you need to put the burden on them to prove what the state of normal is for that water course. And I need to have those wetlands flagged as well. So the owner said he was contacting Rich Snarsky, who's, you know, a very well respected certified soil scientist. I'm hoping that that's the case. So I'm going to follow up on that and make sure that this, you know, and I've driven by the property a few times just to take a look as well.
Okay, so are you giving him a certain amount of time to have this completed? Or
I'm going to do that. So I talked with Abby about that this afternoon. What I'm going to do is put everything together tomorrow, my photos, my reports, my letter, and then we can review the package, have our town attorney review it, and then I can send it out. So I'm hoping to have that done within the next couple of days. I'll complete my portion of it tomorrow and then, you know, send it off to you.
okay. Any questions, comments before we move on?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, moving on to item agenda number 7, proposed amendments to our bylaws. So we had accepted those amendments at our last meeting. I guess we're waiting for town council approval or adoption of those amendments. Do we have an update with where town council stands on that?
I do not. Sherry, do you have an update on where town council is with the bylaws?
No, I don't.
They've been
I think
submitted,
Abby-
but we don't, yeah, they've been submitted, but we haven't heard back about when they might appear on an agenda. So I'll check in with the town manager tomorrow and find out when that's going to be. I think,
Okay,
what, January 18th, I think, because there's a meeting tomorrow, which is obviously too soon to get on the agenda. We'll see if we can make it for the January 18th.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Abby. All right, item agenda number 8, discussion. So I knew that we were going to have a pretty light agenda, so I just wanted to have an open discussion with our commission and talk about how we process new applications. Maybe if I have some ideas, but I thought we can brainstorm together on how to make this easier, run faster, more so, be smooth and consistent with how we're accepting applications as a commission, and together coming to decisions that need to be made. So, for example, a couple of things I've noticed where we're a little inconsistent is, accepting applications after our agenda has already been filed, and almost like these late minute applications that come in the day before. I think we should come up with some kind of standard on a certain amount of time prior to our meeting, accepting those applications, maybe that they need to be in 24 or 48 hours prior to a meeting, but basically helping the land use office not rush applications to a meeting, because then, if they don't have a proper time to review them, they could be materially incomplete, and we're accepting incomplete applications. And
So
it's
I
something
I
that's
agree
kind of
with you.
happened before, and more so I want to kind of ease the burden on the land use staff.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Scott. I think the thing is that we had a closing date at one point, but we couldn't really adhere to it because people can submit up to 24 hours before. After that, if they want to do it, it has to be a 2/3 majority vote to get it on the agenda. The commission can certainly, if it's incomplete, they don't have to accept it. But I know Abby, I'm going to let her speak because we were talking in general about, especially now we have a full-time town planner, about how we're doing submissions for all the commissions. So Abby, I'll certainly let you.
Yeah, I think what we're really trying to do now is push the development community in particular. I think, a homeowner applying independently is perhaps a little bit of a different thing. And typically they'll call and we can work them through, how to apply and the documents they're going to need. But I think for folks who do frequent business in town, the pre-application meeting, I think, is really critical. And not just for how, how the applications are going to come to inland wetlands, how they're going to proceed through the entire suite of land use boards and commissions that they need to get to, because you're not the only commission that's having the issue of chicken or egg. Have they applied to the appropriate places first, and how are they moving through? So we're going to spend a lot of time with our applicants on that piece of it. I think the other thing that we can do is, even if the content of an application hasn't been fully reviewed, one of the things that we can do, and we have some of it in the OpenGov system where folks have to apply online now, where there's mandatory documents they have to provide. But I think, sort of the minimum checklist to say, okay, in order to be considered to have submitted an application that inland wetlands can accept and receive, it has to meet the following standards. And if it doesn't have at least that minimum information and it comes in 24 hours in advance, we can at least advise you that we believe this to be incomplete, and you could reject it. You could essentially find it to be incomplete at that meeting and then tell them to come back when they're ready. And certainly that's an option as well. So I think sort of the screening of, we've at least said the following things are there, that their wetlands report is completed by somebody who is clearly certified, who has their correct qualifications, plans have been submitted according to the minimum qualifications, or the minimum standards, that kind of stuff. Even if it comes in late and content needs a deeper dive, at least it gives you some confidence that there's nothing missing. So if that's helpful, we can kind of talk through that. But I really think the pre-application meeting, where we pull together folks in our department, folks from other departments when necessary, and really say, listen, let's map out the entire 10-month approval track for this particular activity, I think is important.
The tough ones we see, though, as Abby said, are the homeowners. They're the ones that usually come at the 11th hour. A lot of times they're like, oh, I didn't know I had wetlands, or that type of thing. And then we'll say, well, you need to have, some sort of inland wetlands delineation. And they're like, well, would the committee, and that's the thing. I think, like you said, we need to be more consistent. And so what do we do in those circumstances? Because I always tell people, we can't go by our GIS. It's not accurate. It's not intended to be a parcel level analysis. It needs to be done by a certified person. And that, I know that slows the process for them, but we always tell people, don't wait until July to get your pool. come see us early. But unfortunately, they do that sometimes. And so I find for me, it's harder to control the public than the commercial developer.
Yeah, and I get that, and I think everyone understands that not every permit is the same. So somebody
Right.
that's maybe replacing a deck that's 49 feet from the wetlands is a lot different than a commercial developer, putting in a parking lot 10 feet from the wetlands.
Yeah.
I think we do a really good job of determining what is required in our permits. Not every application requires a licensed soil scientist to flag it. Sometimes we approve previous plot plans or hand sketches. So I think we all understand that every application is different. I just want to make sure that, we don't get into the habit of rushing applications, into our meeting, and then commissioners not getting an opportunity to review it prior to the meeting. And then we're using meeting time to take a first look at an application. So I'm open for suggestions. I'm good with, if it's a minimum inside that 24 hours that it gets bumped to the next meeting. I just really want to make sure that the land use office isn't overworked trying to get an application in front of us that if that it's not materially complete, we shouldn't really be accepting it.
Well, I totally agree. And it does get very much of a pressure cooker for us on those days. I think too, if the commission knows that, they can say, we're not accepting this, it's not done, that's a good one. But also one thing Abby's really going to try to work on with ZBA and other commissions we've talked about is, I think we've always felt this push, even with ZBA, that, we have to get this done right this very minute. And as she said, you don't. You can accept it. You have time to review it. You have time for the public hearing, not necessarily public hearings for wetlands, although you can have them too, but that, we can slow the process down and give the commission time to have all the information and to feel confident. And as Abby said, to help you have findings. So if you don't approve something and it did go to court, that you're not being rushed through, that you would have time to have findings documented so that if it did go to court, you have a good leg to stand on. And I just feel like we've been rushed, and that's something we need to work on. Is not. We're trying to please the public and the applicants, and I think we need to, while we do our best to provide good service, we also need to say sometimes we can't do this. We need more time. We used to have people that came in at 3 minutes of 12 the day before, a ZBA is due. And finally, poor Sherry, we're trying to kind of put the kibosh on some of those practices because it doesn't do them any favors when we don't have time to review things properly.
Kathy, did you say that there's a mandatory, like we mandatorily have to accept, like you guys in the zoning office, do you mandatorily have to accept an application within a certain amount of time to get it on the docket or, on our meeting?
The thing
agenda?
is, we typically usually try to get the agenda out about a week in advance. But if somebody comes into the office, except for ZBA, because those are public hearings, all of them are. So Sherry has to have time to advertise them twice in the newspaper. But with a typical, application that does not have a public hearing, if they come in, say the Friday before the Tuesday, we have to take it.
Sure.
And then if it's after 24 hours or 24 hours less, then we tell them it has to be added on by the commission by a 2/3 majority.
Okay. Kathy?
Yeah.
And there is the statutory cutoff for wetlands applications is the close of business the day before the meeting. So anything that comes in after, say, 4 o'clock on a Monday, generally, they would have to go on the following month's
So
agenda.
that we do that with the, so it can't be the day of. But still, it does put us up against a deadline. And we'll tell people, and I know Sherry's done it and I've done it, or we say, we really don't recommend this. It's not going to give the commission. And then they say, well, they're going to go on a site walk. That gives us, so many weeks. And then we have another month and they'll try to push it through. And technically we can't not, but the commission then can say, this isn't complete. We're not going to accept it.
Well, I think that's what Scott's getting at, right? Is that it's less about, I definitely sympathize with, especially with the homeowner who, you know, even the most basic projects is probably going to be a 60-day delay. So that 1 month makes a really big difference. But the trouble we're running into is we're wasting more of our time and their time, because in those cases, there seems to be a direct correlation between these last minute applications and incomplete applications, or just like a total, you know, and it makes sense. Well, you know, most of the public has no idea what goes on here. I had no idea what went on here until I started a couple of years ago, by chance. And so, is there a way, at least, to, like Abby was sort of getting at, that the checklist is done, so that even though we're getting it 24 hours in advance minimum, that's the earliest I think we could accept one, or the latest we could rather accept one. Is there a way for us to look at a checklist and say, well, we're getting it late, but at least all of these things are checked off? Is there a way for us to do that?
Yeah. I think we can create it's like a one pager. It's not a full staff report. It's not necessarily recommendations of findings or conditions or anything else. It's simply
check.
Here's the check and a little this is the summary of what the application is. Check. Here's what's missing. Do you accept it, or are you telling them they have to defer to the next meeting?
Unless, I mean, I guess my gut reaction would be, and I'd like to hear the rest of the commissions, my gut reaction would be like, we shouldn't even look at it unless it's complete.
You can agree for being incomplete.
Yeah.
You can do that as a commission. You can say this is not complete, and so we're not accepting it. Because the first meetings you officially accept it, and then you schedule the site walk. You can say we're not going to accept this. It's not complete.
Right. I guess that runs into what Scott was saying before. Is like, well, what if it's a deck that, like, you know, we look at it? I don't know. I don't know.
The slippery slope is when you're not consistent, because we're running into that with ZBA, where people say, well, my neighbor had this and that, and then you didn't do this for us. And, you know, and so that's the slippery slope with that one.
So yeah, we would probably then need to just do that. And we'll just have that. This is the way that it is. This is the checklist. If everything isn't checked, it doesn't matter what the project is. We just no longer are accepting any applications that don't have every box checked.
Yeah.
It sounds, you know, heartless and bureaucratic, I see, but there's some really great points being made here. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think.
Go ahead,
Can
Eddie.
you
then I
turn
think
my
on the-
audio on?
Eddie, you're on mute.
No, we can hear you, Eddie.
Oh,
I got you.
Okay, you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so we don't accept, Kathy will attest to this, we don't accept applications unless they're fully completed. And we shouldn't accept applications unless they're fully completed also. That's my belief. It'll save a lot of aggravation. And like Kathy said, it'll set a precedent that we accepted, you know, applications that were incomplete. There's a lot that goes into an application, you know, so instead of, you know, spending our time on it, we shouldn't have to do that.
And also, I would like to suggest, and I know Sherry and I have done this with people too, if the regulations require that they have wetlands on a site plan, they can request a waiver. But other than that, they need to have it, because otherwise people will say, well, I know my wetlands aren't there because there's no water. And we keep telling them soil side, it's, you know, alluvial, floodplain, you know, poorly drained or very poorly drained. Like it's not something you can see. And so people try to skirt that a little bit. And I think it's important. They can ask for a waiver, but otherwise they've got to have the things that are required in the regs.
Kathy, I may have missed something that because of my speaker, I don't know. I'm buying a new computer tomorrow. Anyway, so the Cow Hill Road that Abby, yourself, and I went out there, right? So
Yes.
Is that being facilitated?
So that's not an application.
We're not leaving it like it is, are we?
Or a violation. So can we talk about that in the office if you want? Because it's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we'd be working on that by now. I mean, just.
Why don't you call me tomorrow? We can talk about it. Because it's
So
not
as it pertains to this,
business.
I guess, Kathy, the question is who checks the application first before it gets presented to us?
So
Because
we have an open gov system now. We were not taking, we used to only take paper applications, and we only went to online a couple months ago. So what happens is the system takes it in, Sherry gets first crack at it to look and see, you know, what's there. And it's supposed to have in there the description. And as Abby said, there are certain things that are kind of fail safes put into open gov. So for example, if you don't have a site plan, or if it finds that you're in a CAM zone, or it's supposed to stop you and say, oops, you know, you need to submit this, you're in a flood zone, you know, and but obviously it's not human, so we have to go back and check those things. And then Sherry will usually check with me and say, like, does this need engineering review, or whatever, so that I can tell her what the fee is going to be. And then she'll submit it to the applicant to tell them to pay. And then I'll look it over, and then, you know, that go from there. But everything comes in virtually. So when you get it nowadays, there's that link. That's all the documents that they submitted. And then anything extra that Sherry gets, like say there's an important email chain, she'll you know, scan it and email it into the attachments. But otherwise, that applicant will put in all those things, a site plan, you know, anything else will come in as attachments. So when you see it, the details will be the description of the project, and it will have things usually like map, block, lot, and all that. And then the attachments is where you'll find all of the documents that go along with it.
awesome. Yeah, the new system's amazing. It's so much better.
Well, it
so-
is, we're still getting used to it. But, and then what happens is there's a comment section. So let's say, for example, the applicant asks a question. If they type it in comments and I respond, then everything's in there together. So if you look back 3 years from now and you're wondering, why did Kathy ask for that, or what happened? You can look at the comments, and we do it with complaints too, so that there's communication there, so people get a better picture of the whole story, not just bits and parts.
So so you guys know when something is incomplete, like just by virtue of what the job is. Can we, as a commission, are we allowed to basically only accept complete applications? Is that something like, not even like, I don't know that you even want to see them until they are complete? It's almost not in our purview. Like does that make sense? Am I being clear there? Can we put ourselves in a position as a commission to only accept completed applications?
So I'm not sure what the statutes are on that, Abby. Can we do that?
So,
Well,
what would
that's how it
happen?
used to be at planning and zoning. We never accepted an application unless it was full cap, unless it was a full application. They had members from the commission look at the application. We meet, we used to go to your office, and there'd be 4 of us, and Sherry will tell you, and we all looked at every single page, every document. And if it was missing something, we would give it back to Sherry, and Sherry would contact the applicant and tell them, you have an incomplete application, we cannot accept it. And that's what we used to do. So, like, if we get, you know, like on ours, it's a little different from planning and zoning, but it's still the same thing. We should not have to accept anything unless everything's there. And like, you guys are so busy, maybe 1 or 2 people from the commission can look at an application to see what's missing. Right down to the soil and erosion controls, you know, right down to everything. And then if it's complete, you can pass it off to you, and you can pass it off to, you can put it on the agenda.
I mean, I think one of the things that I've been chatting with folks in the office about, and I'm going to start launching out to the various boards and commissions, is adding a section onto the agenda specifically. You know, it's a section. I think you have it under here as new applications, so receipt of applications, and in that section, every single one that comes in, because I think if folks meet this 24-hour deadline and they've provided something to the commission should be making a finding of, it's complete and this is officially the date of receipt, so the statutory time clock starts, or we're rejecting it and there is no application because it's found to be incomplete, the clock hasn't started. And so I think that having that really clearly done with a motion to receive the following application or to not receive the following application based on completeness will help. I think the other part of it is that the checklist items, all of you are incredibly busy too, and we have a team that can certainly do the completeness reviews in the office. I think the pre-application pieces, we'll try to get folks to a better place for what they're submitting. But I think that checklist should have, a little bit higher level detail. Like, so for example, in OpenGov, it may say site plan, but we know what the critical elements in the site plan need to be. So on our checklist, there's going to be, is the line delineated or is there a waiver request? What else? Are there other resources that need to be put on there? Do they identify that there's a potential vernal pool here? Have they done those things? Is there a statement of significant impact or not, right? Have they provided their alternatives analysis, and just kind of run through those critical pieces. And I think what we can probably do for February is craft that checklist so that, we can say, this is what we'll be doing. This is the one pager. And so when you see an application come to you, all the materials will be in OpenGov. You'll get the link, but you're going to get this cover sheet. And that cover sheet is going to be the staff assessment of completeness. And at least you have something to go on. And then you can always go back and check and go back into the details of stuff, to see if you've missed anything or if you think differently, because ultimately you'll make the vote about receipt or not. But I think we can certainly at least give that initial up or down of this feels like it's got everything, or you need to realize that we couldn't find the following.
And I also would encourage you to use your authority as the commission to say, we're not going to accept this because it's incomplete. Because I will tell you that I can speak for Sherry too, we often chase people. We'll send them comments in OpenGov. We'll send them emails. We'll say, we can't accept this. This is not a site plan. It's just an overlay on GIS that doesn't meet the standard. And so we'll be chasing people, and I put notes on my calendar. I called this person on this date. I emailed them on this date. I emailed them again. I haven't heard back from them. And this is just another example, but part of my job is to review building permits to see if they're in flood zones and to make sure that they've applied for wetlands permits if they didn't get one already. And I have so many in my calendar to check up on because people don't submit things to me. So even though like Abby said, the computer flags it, it doesn't mean that what they're giving us is the standard that we need it to be. And we can chase people, and then we have other work to do. So it can be really frustrating at times to email, or like sometimes I'll say to Sherry, did you do XYZ? She's like, Kathy, I've called 3 times and I've emailed and they're not responding. So it's not for lack of effort. It's just sometimes people don't work with us to get what's required.
And we should go on to the next applicant. You should maybe put 1 email, 2 at the very most. You should not have to keep trying to call somebody. That's wrong. Just move on and let them call you and ask them, what's going on? Well, here's my, and have a return receipt on you can send them a certified letter or do return receipt that they open their email. You shouldn't have to be doing that. Kathy, you guys are so busy you and that.
Yeah.
Why would you be doing that? That's the last thing I'd be doing.
I
One
think
chance, 2 chances.
It's usually because we want to help people get to where they need to be.
I think one of the things is if you're a homeowner trying to get a permit, they don't realize that, hey, it's going to take another month if you don't get it together now, or 2 months,
right. You should
or 3 months. And some people will even give up at that point, And it's very important that maybe that needs to be stressed to them right from the beginning. How important it is to have it together. It's like registering your car. You're not going to get it registered unless you have your insurance and your title and all.
Yeah, go to DMV and try to pull that. They laugh
Exactly.
at you.
Yeah, and I think that we don't want to be. I don't think any of us are looking to be the DMV, right, or aspire to what we get
Well,
there.
I think some people think they can skirt it too, and they'll say,
Well,
well,
I'm just saying,
I don't have a site plan.
I think that there is a case to be made for, even at the DMV, if you don't have that paperwork, there's nothing they can do for you. You need certain documents. And I think that we can have a little bit of an element of that here. You know, I think as a commission, and knowing some other people on other commissions in this town and other towns, I think we really try our best to do right by the homeowner and make this easy, which is a process that is not always easy, right? And we do a lot for them, and with all volunteers, we go above and beyond. You know, during COVID, we called special meetings to allow things to go through. We do a lot of that, but there is some baseline things that we need to do our volunteer job effectively. And I think that probably is at least a complete application. And whether or not we have to decide whether it's complete or not is, I guess, I don't know that if us deciding if the application is complete saves us any time, is that we sort of end up in the same spot. We end up in the first part of our call, we're all sort of looking through this application. We just got it, we were all at work. If there's a way that application doesn't come to us, if you guys have determined that it's not ready, or if you're on the bubble and it just does go to us, my sense is that will probably save us some time and in effect save the homeowner some time. Like, hey, don't bother going in front of the commission with this. Like, one, they can't accept it unless all this paperwork is here, all this is here. Go get this stuff done, get in front of them, make your case. They're very reasonable. I mean, that's I think that'll save us some time, as you know, instead of like it's like we're all doing our homework last minute on the bus or something, where I can see all of our heads on Zoom here like looking and like reading through and trying to understand. It's not a good use of this commission's time. So anyway, that's my piece.
That's exactly why I brought it up, Ryan. You know, it's no fault to anybody. You know, I know we're trying to be accommodating, but there were several applications, even just this past year, where we probably accepted an incomplete application. And then, you know, how many times did I have to ask Sherry, you know, how much time is left on this application? Because, you know, the applicant now spent another month or two going to get wetland flagging because we decided that they need wetland flagging and that was materially incomplete. So it's, you know, more so trying to ease the burden on our staff, but just to make sure that, you know, we're not accepting anything that's not materially complete, just so that it doesn't waste our time or the homeowner's time either.
Agreed.
But I like the idea of a checklist, something that we can quickly ask the land use office, either Kathy or Abby, you know, is this application materially complete? They can let us know yes or no, it's minus a site plan, but the applicant is looking for a waiver of the site plan. And then that's something that we can talk about before just, you know, blatantly saying, yes, let's approve this or accept this application, and now it's on the clock.
Very good.
I think we can take that section of you know, application requirements and put it in like even bullet points to take some of the jargon out of it, so we can explain to people what it means. But you know, we talked about with ZBA too, you know, I know it's another commission, but just as an example, some people don't even know what the terminology is, so they can't answer a question as to whether or not they even had it or have had it. So with wetlands too, I think there's still that misconception. I did my little article in Events Magazine. How do you know you have wetlands? But it is so important, and I think it, you know, it's educating people so that they understand why we have a wetlands commission and you know what we're doing. But I like the idea of a short checklist that they can take home, and then if they have questions, they can show it to their engineer, whomever, and they'll understand what it is exactly that they need, because the sections are a little bit thick sometimes for people to read through without land use knowledge.
Nope, I agree. Good comments.
Nice.
So I guess any other discussion on this topic? I know this is not something we need to solve tonight, but maybe just a 2023 resolution for our commission.
Well, it's a good starting point, the checklist.
Yeah.
And the application and not having the personnel chasing down people after, I wouldn't call them 2, 3, 4 times. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
and stress,
okay.
Like Lawrence said, stress the importance of, you know, they're paying application fees, they're doing all this stuff. You know, it's on you. We'll help you, but you got to go get your stuff.
Yep.
That's
Well
ridiculous.
Okay, if there's no more discussion on this topic, we can move on. So item agenda number 9, bills or correspondence. I did not see any
None.
bills for this month.
None.
We're not getting paid this month?
Item agenda number 10, old or new business. I don't have any new business. Does anyone have anything to discuss under this
Nope.
item?
Nope.
Hey, additions to next month's meeting. Is there anything we want to talk about? I guess if
well,
you're having the beaver,
Yeah, the
East
date's
Beaver?
incorrect. It says here February 3rd meeting. It's actually February 7th.
yep. correct.
And yes, Diane Honer is going to be joining us for a presentation.
Okay. I would assume she's probably going to share some material. So whenever we get to her, could you just give her rights to share screen? And
I already talked to her about that today. So,
Great.
and then I told her to plan for like 15 minutes. And then I told her to be available for questions and answers afterwards. So she's happy to do that.
perfect. I think that'll be a good education for us.
Yeah.
Wait a
item
minute. So
agenda-
I'm sorry. The
Yep.
the meeting is not the 3rd. It's the 7th.
That's right. The 7th is the
Oh.
first Tuesday, not the 3rd.
Yeah.
3rd is a Friday.
It still says additions to next meeting.
Okay.
Gonna
Well,
change
I
that.
guess I'm not going to be at that meeting. I'm going to Florida.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have it on tape so you can watch the portion of Diane's presentation afterwards.
Okay,
Tanya, you can
yeah,
spend
good.
your vacation here with us remotely.
I'm
When
not
you
even
get
going
back.
for a full week, so.
When
But
you
I
get back.
need my son. It's February, you know.
It was beautiful here today.
I'm sure. I look at you. You look like you've been out in the sun.
84 degrees today.
Listen to
Oh,
Mike.
lovely. Yeah. I can't wait.
Okay, so no addition to next month's meeting. Item agenda number 12, chair's comments. I don't have any comments tonight. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second.
Okay.
I got a Larry. I heard him. All right, those voting in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Great. All right, thanks everybody. Thank you, Kathy.
Happy New Year,
Abby,
everybody.
Sherry.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year.